I was playing basketball with Doug when I.
Oh, no way.
Yeah,
Oh,
so-
nice transition.
You brought him to the game?
Yeah,
He was telling me.
fault.
Yeah, he was telling
Okay,
me,
this
like,
guy is insane. All right, he just goes out there and he's like, okay, I'm not as tall as these people, I'm not as athletic as these people, but what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna give 115%. He's out there for 1 minute, and all of a sudden he just dives for a ball, tumbles, hits his shoulder. I'm like, are you okay? He gets up, he's like, I'm back in, and he's running back at the ball. And then he comes out. He's like,
Beast mode.
I think I might have hurt my shoulder. I'm like, yeah, it looked like it.
Yeah, I mean, I full speed down court, full speed, because I strip the ball. We're chasing it. We get tripped up. I go to fall, and instinctually, it kicks in this karate roll that I learned when I was
tuck
like
and roll.
7. Well, yeah, you like put your pinky down and you roll along the side of your arm up over your shoulder. But I was going so fucking fast.
Take it to the
I
meaty
rolled and
areas.
landed back on my feet and kept running. And played for like
Oh,
another.
damn. Rebounded
Dude,
it.
I think he got like 2 steals in like 4 minutes.
Yeah.
He was,
Damn.
Yeah, and I fell both times.
Yeah.
They
Well,
also made me take I was wearing a hat because I didn't know this was like a professional fucking.
okay,
Yeah.
it is not a professional game.
You can't
That-
wear
that
you
was the
can't
thing
wear a
he
hat.
told me.
Yeah, you can't wear a hat. So like, I come onto the court and they're like, take your hat off. So I take my hat off and my hair's like this and I'm playing and I can't fucking see and.
Well, he said he went to go play basketball with you, and he didn't know that it was going to be like some like actual league.
Okay, you know
kinda
what?
thing,
Hold on.
like-
To go back to the Renaissance Fair, I laid it out what it is. Refs, real league teams,
Okay,
stats. I
sure.
told you all the stuff. All right, that's not.
And that day we started drinking at 10 a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
maybe don't remember everything that was
That's
the
true.
details.
That's true. You also had 2 months to follow up.
That's true. That's also true. But I think, look, you asked me and Brendan to be on your team. That can't mean it's real. Like
Yeah.
we're both like 5'5".
Yeah, it was bad planning on my part. I guess like when you're a tall person, you're like, we can all play basketball here,
Yeah.
and then we get out there like, oh, maybe.
Yo, you need someone to you want someone to
There's some
steal and cause
difference here.
chaos. If you need if you need a chaos dude on your team, that's me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are we? I know they're normally doing the cameras. Are we good? Are we rolling?
Not a damn chance. Not a damn chance.
Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely no problem.
This, as a poker player myself, I have gone through the ups and downs, never at your level, but I have felt sick to my stomach and not known how I could possibly wake up tomorrow when I'm driving home negative in my account, and all those things. And so, this is, for those of you at home who don't know Doug, he's the #1 heads-up poker player on planet Earth and
Beast.
easily, in the conversation for best poker player all around on
Thank you.
planet Earth. And you've made untold amount of money and you've lost untold amount of money. And obviously you're doing it in a sport that's so like there are 75,000 people at the World Series right now trying to make a name for themselves. And like, I really want to know, and we've had several conversations off, camera, but I would like to know how does one get into that? I know how I got into it, but how does one get into it at the level of like, I'm going to leave everything else behind and become the actual best?
Right. Well, so I guess just taking a step back, right? I was always into video games. I was a very competitive gamer when I was young, and fortunately, kind of like I'm 36, and it was basically like the first generation of people coming up where you could play video games sort of professional-ish. You could travel around, go to tournaments, all that kind of stuff. And there was this game called Warcraft 3 that I found when I was like 12.
Yeah.
And I got really good at that game, and I was one of the top few players in America, and I would travel around for tournaments,
Sick.
and I'd go to regionals, and I'd qualify for nationals, and I remember when I was 15, I got an all-expense trip paid to go to New York, and I remember landing, and I just get off the plane, I'm all by myself in New York, I'm like, wow, the big city, and some guy's like, yo, kid, you want some crack? And I'm like, no, I'm here for my video game tournament. So anyway, I'm just like over the moon, right? And I got to go play, and the problem was, I was very good at that game. It's kind of like StarCraft, but I was very good at that game, but I was never #1 in the country. And the way that it would work is, in a game like that, if you want to qualify for international tournaments, you have to win your country, basically. U.S. might send a few people, but I would still never be the top 2 or 3. So I was kind of stuck. I was stuck at like 5th-ish, 5th to 10th, no matter
Which is still absolutely insane because I grew up playing Warcraft 3 too. I loved it. I never even knew that you could. I didn't even know you could become a
Professional
professional
at it. Yeah.
Warcraft player.
Well, actually, yeah. So my screen name in poker was WCG Rider, and it came from this. It's like the backstory to that. But anyway, so I was always kind of stuck in that fifth-ish range where I could qualify for national tournaments, but I could never get past that. So one day, someone just said to me, like, "Hey, man, you're spending thousands of hours in this game over the last several years, just like grinding away. Why don't you play poker?" And I said, "Well, poker's gambling. I don't want to be gambling. That sounds bad." And they're like, "No, it's person versus person. It's a strategy game where you try and execute a higher level strategy than your opponents, and if you do, you win money." And I thought that's interesting. And I remember Googling and reading, and after an hour or two, it set in that, oh my God, I could actually win money in the long run, even though it's gambling, because I'm playing versus other people. The house is taking a cut, but if I can be better than that, I'll make money. And the moment that clicked, I was done with video games. It was like, wow, oh, okay, this is a career. This is like a real actual shot to use my ability to think strategically, to build something special. And around that time, I was in high school, and I started playing, the classic $20 home games. I look back on those and think, man, that's kind of funny to think about now, like playing for pennies and stuff. And before I knew it, I kind of moved up in stakes, started a bankroll. And basically my freshman year of college, it just got to a point where it was pretty clearly financially irresponsible for me to stay in school. Like if I dropped out and pursued poker, I could win potentially millions of dollars. If I stay in school here, I'm going to rack up all this debt, right? Because I couldn't afford to pay my own college. And it's so unclear where that could even go. Like I was going to school for political science, was going to be an attorney. Thank God that didn't happen. And instead of going that whole route, I decided just to kind of live the dream. So with just about like $5,000 in my pocket, I dropped out of school, packed up my car, and moved to Las Vegas. And kind of the rest is history, man. That's the origin story.
Just went for it.
I went for it.
And you were what, 21? I take it.
I was 20.
You were 20 when you went to Vegas.
19. Let me think about this.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
super young.
I was a couple of years before I was even 21 when I first dropped out. Yeah.
So did you have a fake ID, or you were playing,
No.
home games?
No, I wouldn't do that.
But hypothetically, if you were to, how would you do?
Can I tell a funny underage gambling story?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right, perfect. So when I was like 18 years old, my friend and I, we did like a cross country road trip, right? So I was pretty into poker at this point, and we were going to go to Atlantic City. Now, I had gotten this fake ID and this is crazy this happened to me, but I was at someone's 21st birthday, and they go, "Oh, I don't need my fake anymore," and threw it up in the air, and I ran over and caught it, almost like a girl with the bouquet. I'm like, oh. Anyway, so I get this ID, I look at it. The guy just looks like me. It looks like me if I was in the military and bald. And so I'm like, well, this is an incredibly good fake ID. I'm going to start using this whenever I want to buy beer or whatever. So we go to Atlantic City, and I'm thinking, all right, I got this. I'm going to use my fake ID. It's fine. So go to the poker room. I sit down. And then one of the dealers goes, "Hey, get the floor." Floor comes over. He's like, "Hey, are you 21? I'm like, "Yeah, I am." He's like, "Security, come here." Security comes over. Now, in Atlantic City, I believe it's a felony to underage gamble. So it's a bit of a risk even to take the risk here to gamble, right? So they come over, and it was this like big black dude. His name was Lorenzo, big stash. And he goes, "Come with me, kid." And I walk over. He's like, "Let me see the ID." I give him the ID, and he goes, looks at me, and goes, "Hey, this is expired." And I said, "Oh yeah, I lost my wallet." Quick thinking on my feet there. That was good.
Yep.
He goes, "Sorry, I gotta take you to head of security." So now all these guards and police, and we're all going as a unit to the head of security, right? And my friend's watching from the side. He's like, we're going to jail. We're going to jail tonight. That's where this ends. I get there. She goes, "Let me see the ID." Give it to her. She looks at me. And this is not a doctored photo. This is not a photo. This is a legit ID of someone else. And she goes, "Okay, this is clearly you." I'm just like, this is incredible. This is clearly you.
Sick.
So here's what we'll do. Look, you don't have any other ID? I said, "No, I lost my wallet." She goes, "Oh, that makes sense." "Okay, well, just wait. And when the floor changes, you can get back in there. No one will ask. You're good. Sorry about that."
Wow.
And I grabbed two guards. I'm like, "Guys, this whole experience has made me feel under 21 again." And we all laugh. And I walk away. Like I had to do a little gloating at the end, just like a little. Anyway, long story short, I did do a little bit of underage gambling over the years, but I mainly played online, right? Because that's where you can get a lot of volume in, a lot of sample in. That's kind of what my focus was. But in the poker world, online and live are both good places to play. You kind of want to just get both going so you have some volume.
Is that where you got most of your training, just like online and stuff, or?
Yeah. So
did you pick it up really quick, or was it like took some time to like really get into it?
It took me a little bit. I think for some people, they're more naturals than others. I wouldn't say I was a natural at poker. I just have the two things that I really have going for me. I have a very good strategic mind in that When I was a kid, my dad taught me chess. And so I've always been thinking, like, how can I look at this critically and be unbiased? And when I lose, take responsibility for my shortcomings and improve them and not be like, it's his fault. This happened. I got unlucky, but take responsibility. And I've always been good at that. And then the second thing is I have a very hard work ethic, a very high work ethic, like drive to succeed. And when you pair those two things, poker is a really, really good game because even though it took me a lot longer to move up from the small stakes to the higher stakes than a lot of other players did, I was just always fighting. And no matter whether I was doing well or poor, however it was going, I would fight. And just having that kind of discipline and that kind of unbiased analysis and that kind of work ethic kind of combined is a perfect cocktail to succeed in poker. So I'm very grateful for the game.
How did you, like when you got into it, you said you were like 16-ish, 16, 17 probably?
Yeah, probably around there, yeah.
So at that time, 20 years ago, I mean, there was books, but like, did you buy a bunch of books? Was there even online training or YouTube? I don't even know if there was like YouTube poker stuff back then.
We didn't even have YouTube back then. That was so long ago. You actually spurred this memory I've burned into my mind where when I was 15, 16, my parents split up and they both left the city. So they basically left me, a high schooler, in a house by myself.
Oh, wow.
Which was risky to say the least on their part. Now we're having all these parties at my house. Anyway, so I remember vividly taking my dad's beat up minivan and driving to the local bookstore. I didn't have enough money to buy books. So I would just read all the poker books and then drive the beat up minivan back home. Cost me $0. I'd go learn some stuff. I'd read all the greats like Phil Gordon and Phil Hellmuth and anyone else named Phil. So I remember doing that all the time to learn and improve. But the thing about poker back then, it was kind of the Wild West in that there wasn't a lot of the solutions that we have today where we kind of know certain things are good or bad. It was just, that guy says this, you say that. Who's to say who's right or wrong,
Well, you mentioned something that is very important in poker, and that's you're saying that you don't necessarily feel like you have like the natural talent that some people may. And it's like, so like I started playing when I was like 4, and I've been playing my whole life, and I didn't start learning like GTO or anything until like maybe 2-3 years ago, because it was like, so I feel like when you come in later in the game and you come in with that sort of mentality of like, I'm doing this as a strategy game. Like to me, it was a game that you played for pennies, nickels, and dimes with your grandparents on the coffee table, And so like, as you get older, it's a thing you do with your friends. You're trying to beat them, but you're trying to bluff them and you're trying to call their bluffs, but you have no idea why.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
You don't know the strategy.
Yeah. And so I feel like it's so fascinating to me to meet someone who is killing the game, who their introduction was, this is a strategy game where you can make money.
Yeah.
Right.
Because for me, it was just a people game of trying to outwit your opponent.
Right. And that's
trying to pull a bluff off on your brother,
Yeah. So that's certainly the more common way people learn. And I think about when I was a kid, I remember going to a Super Bowl party and all the dads played 5-card draw and had these coins and whatnot. But I never really wanted to get involved in things that I felt were mainly luck. I wanted to do things that I thought were skill based. And so the moment that I realized the game was skill and the luck, it clouds the ability to see the skill. It's actually kind of perfect, right?
Yeah.
Because no one's going to play high stakes chess.
Yeah.
If Magnus Carlsen comes in, hey Doug, what are you looking to gamble for? Nothing. Not 1 cent. You're going to kill me. We could play 10,000 games. I'm winning 0. But if we play poker, and even if his strategy is, I'm just going to go all in every hand, he might win 40% of the time, right? And that level of luck is beautiful because it makes it hard to see who's winning day to day, or day to day, anyone can win, but in the long run, the better player wins. And so it's like the perfect blend like that. And I think that's why it's so popular, because it plays into people's ability to be self-delusional, but also not so much that the good players can't win somewhat consistently.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, I don't know much about it. I've never gambled in my life. I like gamble on my skateboard every day, but like I always stayed away from that kind of gambling just because it was just always tough for me to like really kind of think about like, gambling my money that I worked super hard for on my skateboard, and I potentially gambled my health and well-being,
Yeah.
So it was always tough for me. So I've always stayed away from it,
That's a good way to go, I think, with poker. Look, if you're going to play for fun, then you can do whatever you want as long as you gamble responsibly. It's fine. But if you're going to try and play competitively, you really need to give it a lot, especially nowadays because people have gotten so much better.
Good.
It's not the kind of game that you can not know much about, step in 2 times a year and do well. Like you're not going to, you need to practice and study and grind.
It's wild. I've had I've taken a few sabbaticals from poker, and I'll come back like after not playing for a year, and I'll be like, I don't understand this game. Like literally, I'll feel like a helpless child in the like, and I'm good. I'm pretty good. I'm not good like you are, but like I'm a solid player. But I'll come in and I'll be like, wow, the whole game has changed.
Yeah.
And every couple of years, and now it's every couple of months, the whole game changes.
Yeah, I mean, it's constantly changing. By the way, just some backstory. I feel like I have to tell this story.
Uh-oh.
So Phillip and I, before we knew each other, we both loved each other's businesses and didn't know each other. Okay, so I've been at Sushi by Scratch and loved it. It was one of my favorite sushi spots. It was absolutely incredible. We went to the Santa Barbara one. It was amazing. I've been at others now, of course, but and I loved his sushi. And then this guy was actually he is a poker player, and he'd play at my card room here in Austin, the Lodge.
No way.
And this one
And
day,
I've been watching him on YouTube and like all of his stuff for years.
And this one day, I just have this DM on Instagram, and it says, "Hey, do you live in my neighborhood? LOL."
Yeah.
And I'm
So
like-
it was Thanksgiving morning. I think I'm pulling into the you've been
Yeah.
pulling into the gate, and I'm waiting for the gate to open, and there's a car waiting to come out, and we both cross the same moment. I look over, I'm like, is that Doug Polk?
Yeah.
And so I was like,
Crazy.
So I sent him a DM online. I'm like, hey, were you just in my neighborhood? And he's like, well, I was in my neighborhood. And I'm like, well, is this your neighborhood? He's like, yeah. I'm like, and we start talking. He's like, dude, I've been to your restaurants. I'm like, dude, I've been to your fucking club. And
That's
it turns
rad,
out
dude.
we're like we're next door neighbors.
It
Wild.
really is. It's just crazy how life can, and we've talked a bit about this too, but it's crazy how life, totally different directions, you end up in the same place, and now we hang out a bunch, and so many other stories have happened. And I'm not trying to go so off topic here, but I felt like a little backstory
No,
there
I
could
love
be
that.
good for the audience.
I think that it is, it's very interesting because like I watched you on King of the Road and had followed your skateboarding career far before long before we ever met, and now we're best friends and our kids are growing up together and we have business together. Like it's weird how life continues, and that's part of like this this whole idea of like the more positivity and the harder you work and the more things you put out there, the more like it comes back.
Right.
And so I mean I guess I have a lot to be grateful for, and a lot I feel incredibly
Same.
blessed in terms of like where my life is right now.
And you still have all of your limbs, which is
Yeah.
skateboard. That's good, right?
Yeah.
We all have
Limbs are
that.
still there. Yep.
but I mean he's still actively pro. And I mean how many active pros are your age right now?
There's a couple.
Couple.
There's a couple.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But like what? 10% of the pros are your age or less?
I mean, there's a lot of legends that like go on, and
Yeah.
continue skating at a professional level. But yeah, I mean, skating is kind of like a younger kind of thing. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Because you just get to a point to where life kicks in.
Right,
And
yeah.
if you don't have the endorsements or the sponsors or other things going on to continue to like just be outside and skate and have fun, then you have to figure something out.
Yeah,
you know?
I actually was really into skateboarding when I was a kid. I was never very good, but I'd skate every day. I'd skateboard to school. I'd go to the skate park. I was like really into it.
That's so awesome.
I was a big Tony Hawk Pro Skater guy.
Sick,
I mean,
yeah.
I've been in the streets a little bit. I know,
Hell yeah.
what kind of skating did you do, or do you do?
Well, I'm a street skater.
Street skater, okay,
yeah,
cool,
yeah. So
yeah.
mainly like stairs and rails and benches and whatever else obscure thing I could find on the streets. You know,
Okay, so
and
basically any way to try and prevent yourself from having kids in the future is kind of where you're at.
pretty much.
and an fully operable brain.
I'm kind of the same though as you with the poker. It's like I make sure that I take like calculated risks, and especially now that I'm older, I'm about to be 40. A lot of my focus is to make sure that I have the trick down
Right.
before actually attempting it, So there's not really that much leeway of like where the risk is super high. Most things are like calculated and I could get away from it, or I'm going to do it really
Right.
quick,
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, some of like the I love how we've transitioned this conversation to skateboarding.
That's how it goes.
But I
They
feel
go
like whenever
everywhere.
you see someone going at a big set of stairs, and
Yeah.
you're just like, this is risky. Like, you might say it's not, but I've seen too many of these like fail clips on YouTube.
and that's kind of like, the same thing. It's like sometimes people just like, they follow their gut and they just go for it and like, 50% of the time it works and the other 50% it doesn't. But usually at like this level, it's pretty strategically planned, you know, like we practice building up to that and we do it on smaller stuff, the medium and then medium big, and then you go for the big one.
And then when you're ready, you get your filmer and you go film
Yeah.
that thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And like the way I would do it is like throughout the week, I'm like practicing just that
Right,
trick.
okay.
So then that's like all I know when I go to the spot.
Okay, so you're locked in. You're ready
Yeah.
for it. I always really liked Rodney Mullen. I feel like his like technical street skating was
yeah.
just like some of like the best, you know.
He was one of the creators of like so
Dark
many
slides,
tricks,
yeah.
like everything, kick flips, everything.
He made the kickflip.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like everything that people do, he pretty much created
I could
it.
never figure out the kickflip. I could heel flip randomly, but not.
I'm a heel
So
flipper
you
too.
Oh, you're a heel flipper. Ah, cheers. A fellow heel
brothers.
flipper.
I feel like I do need to make you aware of something that you don't know, but he's not a heel flipper. He's the most legendary heel flipper alive.
Oh,
so in the way that you are with heads up, that's him with heel flips. Like,
Oh, nice. You
You
got
just
this
bit-
going. Wow, I hit something right in the nail on the head. I guess. Oh, dude, this is awesome.
Yeah.
so like he's got like this whole like ninja kick, like tweak, like it's in, but like the heel flip is his thing.
Yeah, I just kind of grew up doing heel flips. I would always roll my ankles as a kid, so like kick flips would hurt. So then I would just
see.
do heel flips, and I just kind of got good at them and just continued to do them.
That's awesome. Yeah, heel flips always felt more natural to me for some reason. I could never really describe why, but
Just like the feel and how it flips
Yeah.
under you. I feel, you know, like sometimes the kick flip gets stuck on your foot and
you feel more in
goes all
control with a
crazy.
heel flip.
Mhm.
It's the opposite for me. I mean, that look at that, like giant,
This
like
is beautiful.
like like
These are
like
beautiful
fucking karate kick
Thanks,
straight
guys.
out.
Yeah, skateboarding's fun.
I mean, we could spend the entire 2 hours watching watching his heel flips.
I've
You got
seen-
2
I've
hours
seen
worth of heel
Phillip-
flips too.
I've seen Phillip do a heel flip too before.
Oh, yeah?
He's done one in the restaurant.
Oh,
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
I can skateboard. I cannot skateboard anywhere at the level that he can. Very few people can skateboard at the level that he can. But like I can get on a board. I'm better at poker than I am at skateboarding.
Okay.
But like I can get on a board and ride around. Like if we went to a skate park, I could have a good time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
And I always say it's like that's what skating is. It's like it's about having fun. Like you need to enjoy doing what you're doing, you know. It doesn't matter like how skilled you are and how many tricks you can do, but when you step on that board, if you're having fun, if it frees your mind, like
Yeah.
that's what it's about.
I had a couple injuries. I like broke my foot once, and
Oh, wow.
I just I was racing down some hill, and I feel like after a couple injuries, you just start to feel too afraid to want to commit to things, and then
yeah.
For sure.
Did you ever? I assume you've had some serious injuries over the years, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've had everything for the most part, you know.
Did you feel like when you step back out there, it's kind of like, you know, how in MMA when a fighter loses their first fight or a boxer,
Mhm.
they say it's kind of like never the same again. Did you feel that, or did you just feel like you get right back into the flow of things?
I mean, each time you hurt yourself, you kind of get like little lessons, you know, and it's in the back of your head, and you got to learn how to like kind of overcome that by just going through it again or like pushing through that and like teaching your mind to not freak out if something happens, you know. So you take like little things from each injury, and then it just makes you be more efficient with your time and not you want to be more strategic, kind of the same thing as we were talking
Right.
about. You want to just be more strategic in your methods moving forward after like a big injury, you know.
Yeah, you like don't take it for granted, maybe some of the stuff. Right?
Yeah, and you know there is that too. It's like you start getting this feeling of like I just want to be on my board. I don't really care about doing like really big gnarly things. I just want to be able to skate, you know, because when it gets taken away from you for years
Right.
at a time or months at a time because you're injured, you just want to be on your board. But then one thing leads to the other, and then you're back to jumping down shit again.
I feel I'm watching so many similarities between skateboarding and poker in terms of like, you know, what stakes you're playing at, and then you get to a stakes that's too high and you lose everything. It's basically like breaking your leg, and now you have to go, you know, take some time away for a minute and then start back at the bottom and start working your way back up. And
I know I want to hear some of those
yeah,
stories.
because I'm very interested in the fact that like it makes sense to me that you say you took a lot longer to move up in stakes than most people do. it makes sense to me because now that I know you as a person, and I didn't know your approach was, this is a strategy game I can make a living at. So it makes sense to me that you would pragmatically say, I need an actual bankroll of whatever X big blinds before I play that game, and I must sustain them for a certain amount of time before I move in, where it was like, I'll just buy into whatever I have the money for,
Yeah, so if you're going to approach it like a professional, you can't just hop in there because it's your livelihood, right? And that's the thing that's a lot different when you play for a living versus when you play for fun. Is like when you play for a living, you need money to make money. So it's not really an option to lose most of your money unless, something really drastic happens. And so you have to kind of always be thinking from a perspective of self-preservation, as well as obviously the higher stakes I play, if I'm winning more money, but I have to make sure that I always have outs, because if I just end up let me give you an example. There's this really dumb movie called Just in Time where everyone has their life on their arm. It's with Justin Timberlake. I would strongly recommend not watching it at home if you're listening to this. Anyway, but there's one poker scene in there which is just hilarious, where they play this high stakes poker game, but it's for years of your life, right? And not money, because that's the currency. And then Justin Timberlake, whatever the name of his character was, basically calls off all in on the turn with a gut shot for his life and hits the straight. And the way the movie shows it, it's like, yeah, I knew I was going to hit the straight. You had 8%, man. Like seeing a poker player, the lesson from that movie for a non-poker player might be, oh, that's totally fine. Not okay. Not okay for
maybe that scene was written by a poker shark who wants to get people thinking that they should be calling off.
Oh, it was an inside job.
It could be.
But where was I going with this before? Going back to talking about just like discipline,
self-preservation.
Yeah, you have to be able to put yourself in consistently good positions. And the other thing too, I was thinking about this a lot actually lately, because I was reading something and it talked about the emotion of regret, right? And regret is one of the strongest possible human emotions. And the thing about regret is everyone's levels of regret and what makes you feel regret are different. And I think like in poker, oftentimes people will regret not having played a bigger tournament, or they'll win and they regret not having more themselves, or they regret not playing bigger stakes. But then they also might play bigger and then regret that they lost so much money. And so there's this question everyone always asks: how much money do I need to play? So for example, like if it's a $200 game, do I need to have 5,000? Do I need to have 10,000? How much do I need to have banked up? And I know it sounds kind of cliche, but it really kind of matters a lot on you. Like, are you someone that's more likely to feel regret because you lost too much money, or are you more likely to feel regret of someone that didn't take their opportunity that might have been in front of them? And so it's not really like a one size fits all. And when I was coming up in poker, the games were so good and they were so plentiful that I was relatively aggressive with my bankroll, particularly when I was in my, when I was 18, 20, 22, and I didn't have a wife or kids or whatever. It's just me, right? So if I lose half my money, it's just on me, and I'll be fine. Nowadays, probably not putting the house up for sale.
For sure.
So you have to kind of gauge where you're at in life, what your personal pain tolerances are, but it always comes down to the same bottom line, which is, you need to make sure that you're winning. And you need to make sure that you have given yourself enough room to maneuver where you can play your A game. Because a lot of times people will play poker and it's for an amount of money they're not comfortable losing. And if that's the case, you've kind of already lost, because an integral part of poker is knowing when to bluff all in, knowing when to make a call you need to make, doing the things you have to do. And if you feel like you can't anymore because the stakes are too big for you, then you really have already lost.
Yeah. Crazy.
You need to be able to take the high risk sometimes, to be able to get that. So how long did you actually? So what stakes did you start at, and how long were you there for?
So I started poker with $10 on PokerStars, and
that would go a long way if you were playing, 1 cent, 2 cent.
I was at that time. I'd buy in for $1 at a time, and I just kind of built my way all the way up. I started at $1 buy-ins, and by the peak of me playing online, I was playing $200,000 online buy-ins, and I just kept winning basically.
It's like me starting as a dishwasher.
It's so wild, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, it is like that.
And what is the path from 1 cent, 2 cent to 200K?
Well, unlike a dishwasher, it's just playing poker. I don't have to change what I'm doing. I just have to keep playing better and better and become better at the game. So,
but you do have to learn a ton of different skills. I mean, it is still the same game, but as you move your way through a kitchen, you are just acquiring more knowledge and ways to. Yes, the actual physical things you're doing do change, but I mean, it's not that far of a departure from washing dishes to cooking food. but it is just like you're slowly sort of, you know,
Right.
as you amass skills, you can get up to the next level.
Yeah, I guess I just kind of became more specialized, right? Because this is another tip for people that want to play poker. What a lot of people will do is they'll just hop around endlessly. They'll go from like they'll play PLO, they'll play tournaments, they'll play cash games, they'll play this. And if you're just trying to have fun, again, that's fine. I don't want to seem preachy because you know, look, like poker is supposed to be for fun. If you play recreationally, that's cool. I'm talking about for people that are trying to play competitively purely from that mindset. Because it's my career. Like, you know what? Let me give you a great example. This guy, I go over to his house. I forget what was even the event was, but he's whipping up pizzas. Okay.
Oh, my birthday.
And yeah, your birthday. Okay. I feel like we had a few different birthday events.
We had a couple birthday events. Yeah.
Anyway, so this guy's making pizzas, right? I come over. He serves one up. It's delicious. I'm like, oh, man, that's awesome. He's like, no, something's wrong. He's you can see.
I had a problem with
You
it.
can
but-
see he's like visibly upset, and I'm thinking, this is one of the best pizzas I've ever eaten in my life. And then he just worked at it all night. We're hanging out. He's like, this pizza's better. And then finally, by I don't know, 10 o'clock at night, he's like, I did it, and he came out. And okay, the last pizza was undoubtedly the best pizza, but they were all good, and I was full of pizza.
Yeah, and again, when it's recreational, the first pizza is totally good enough.
Right.
And
For
when
sure.
when it is your passion, it's when it's the thing that you're going to try to put your grandkids through school doing. It has to be you have to be the best at
because
it.
it's your career.
Yeah.
So you're not looking at this like, did I make a pretty good pizza? You're like, hey, if I'm making the pizza,
Yes.
it better be really good because this is my. So
Yeah.
Poker is like that. When I'm telling people what to do or trying to give advice, I'm saying it from purely that perspective.
Yep.
Like, you need to make sure that you pick one game, whether it's tournaments, whether it's no limit cash, live, online, whatever, and really focus on that and get extremely good at that. Track your results. And then once that has gone sufficiently well, you can look at maybe expanding to trying to go into some other game types. But you should pick a game and get good at it. Now, Phillip really likes tournaments. I'm more of a cash game guy. I play some of both. But those two games are extremely different because in a cash game, you can rebuy at any point and buy back in, right? So you never have to go home as long as you have more money. Your session can be 1 hour. It could be 5 hours. It could be 20 hours. It can be whatever you want. You decide your own timeline, your own. And I like that from the life flexibility.
Yeah.
This guy likes tournaments, and tournaments are sick because
Yeah.
the way tournaments work, everyone buys in, and then you don't get to choose when you leave. Now, when you run out of chips, you're out. And if you finish in the last, let's just say 15-ish% of the tournament, you make money. It's called in the money. And then it
Okay.
gets progressively higher prizes until one lucky asshole wins the most money,
has all of it.
has all the chips, and wins the most money. Now,
Jesus.
that form of poker, when it goes well, it's the most exhilarating because you might win 10, 20, 50, 100 buy-ins. Some of these big tournaments in Las Vegas they have going, you might win 1,000 buy-ins.
Yeah, I'm gonna win 1,000 buy-ins in July.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with
1,000 buy-ins is like each buy-in is, let's say, 10K, so like 1,000 10Ks.
Yeah, 10 million.
that. Check out the math on that one.
Jesus.
But yeah, I mean,
You let him off the hook there.
but yeah, I mean, you're right. I was a cash game player because when you're growing up, like I had, from the time I was like 14 to 16, I had turned my dad's garage into a poker room, and I had usually 2 tables set up, and then on the weekends I'd have 2 tables in the garage and 1 table outside. And usually you play cash games, you play tournaments, like little sit and goes, and then you're playing AC Deucey and Dealer's Choice and everything but as I started, like, I took a run at trying to be pro when I was like 18, and I would drive to Morongo, and I would get a room for like 4 days, and I'd play, and that was how I made a living. I ended up, after probably about 6 months of that, I was too sick to my stomach, and I just decided to pursue something else. But I really took a run at it, and then after a few years, I came back and I started playing cash and tournaments again, and I always felt like I was good at poker because, like, I'm like 12 years old skateboarding to Blockbuster and getting Mike Carroll's fucking VHS. Mike Carroll, was that his name?
Book of Tells? Or what was
Yeah,
it?
he had a VHS on
I
all
didn't
the
know that.
tells.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so I rent the VHS tape on that, and I'd be reading Harrington on Hold'em and
Nice.
and all that kind of
Nice.
stuff, and so I thought I was good at it, and then I realized I would play a tournament. What you would do is, like, so what he said is, like, you drive 2.5 hours when you were 18 because you had to go to the Indian casino outside town. You drive 2.5 hours, and you might only last 5 minutes. And then you're like, I can't play anymore. So what you would do is you'd play a cash game. You get there early, you played cash game for 45 minutes. Then you'd play your tournament, And then if you won, you'd go home. But if you didn't, if you bust early, you go play a cash game again. And I started to realize a few years later that, like, if I started with the cash game, I'd be playing with the cash mentality into the tournament. And if I got deep into a tournament, lost, and I went and played cash, I'd be playing with the tournament mentality. And I realized it's two entirely different games.
Right.
So I was like, I have to pick one. I like tournaments better. So I picked tournaments. And literally, I went from cashing 10% of what I was playing to like winning 10% of what I was playing. And it was just only focusing on one discipline.
Right. And that's something that probably applies to a lot of fields where, as we live in a time where people have access to doing more and more things, people have more free time, they're online more, whatever. People are trying harder in individual areas. And so I feel like the value of someone that's like, you know what, I'm willing to go all in on this one exact thing and try and be the best here.
Like a burger.
Like a burger.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's what we're doing.
There you go. Exactly. Then you have
One burger.
What's up? Sorry.
It's one burger, one way.
One way.
burger. There you go. So like those, you have an advantage in that area because you're so specialized. And I think like specializing is just something that people should be a little bit more willing to do. It's not like you're pigeonholing yourself if you only play one kind of poker. You're actually making yourself better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it goes to like what I'm getting from you guys is like it goes to say it's like if you have a passion and you basically focus on that passion, you can possibly become the best as long as you put everything into it, you know, and put in the time, put in the hours, put in the days, because a lot of times, like with all the things going on in the world, you want to like learn how to do this, and then I want to learn how to do this, but I also want to be that and do that. And sometimes it just causes confusion, right? But if you just focus on one thing and put all your chips in, like you could become the best.
If you want to be good.
Yeah.
Like, it depends what you want, right? Like you might want to just ride your board every now and then, be fine.
Yeah.
But if you want to be
the best basketball player, you have to play basketball all day, every day.
Yeah.
If you want to be the best poker player, you have to play poker all day, every day. Skateboarding, cooking, anything you want to do if you want to be the best.
Yep.
And I think all three of us in our own careers have been like, one day I want to be the best that there's ever been.
You know what's kind of interesting about all those fields, by the way? They're all fields that can't really be taken over by AI.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like there's going to
AI
be...
could take over poker, no?
Well, I'm talking about, playing at a table. It's never going to be
yeah.
AI, right? Like online poker, does have some threats, although as long as you play on a website that has good security, then they can combat a lot of that. But I feel like the arts and entertainment and like that kind of sector of things is probably going to have a disproportionate amount of the jobs in the future as more and more of these like tech, these like sort of fundamental to society jobs are replaced by AI. All of that kind of stuff, like the entertainment. I had this argument the other day, actually. I'm interested in your guys' thoughts. Where would you want to hear music produced by a robot? Like I wouldn't, or AI. Like I would want something that's produced by people. What do you guys think?
I've got a good answer for that, and I was actually thinking about this. I was driving over today, and I was singing along to a song in my car, and my eyes were welling up. And I've thought about this many times because, like, I was a drummer, and I've been in bands my whole life, and that, and music is a big thing for me. And I was a guy who read every lyric and knows every lyric to every song I care about. And I noticed this with film, and I noticed this with TV shows. I noticed this even in playing a video game. I noticed this with music. I resonate with somebody's actual passion. When someone sings a song about something that actually means something to them, it touches me in a way that, and I was thinking about actually today. It's so funny that you bring this up, because I was thinking about why is it that this song is touching me like this, but another song does not touch me like this, even though it may have the same subject matter. And I think that, nowadays with music, there are so many artists who don't write their own music, right? And like, for me, it doesn't resonate at all. And so for an artist to sing something that's not integral is the equivalent of AI. And so I do think there is going to be a huge market for it, because how many of the biggest artists in the world are just figureheads for somebody who's writing their music, right? But that's why you get bands and stuff who have like cult followings, who will like die for their
Grateful Dead.
You'll have bands like that because people will actually feel the emotion, feel the like the thing that is birthed out of you as an artist. People can tangibly feel that,
It's the
and you'll
soul.
never, and you'll soul.
It's
Soul is the
soul.
word,
Soul's a
Yeah,
great word
yeah.
for that, yeah.
and I don't think you can ever replicate that soul. So although I might be like, damn, this is good music, and I could listen to it in the car, I don't know that AI could make a song that would make my lip tremble.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I've never thought about it like that exactly, and maybe music is already further down this road than I would have even imagined. But there's something with like, for example, like when a singer has like a ghostwriter or someone writes their lyrics, that doesn't feel so bad to me because it's still people as a team putting out something. But the idea that just like an AI overlord is serving it up and then programming it into my station, I'm listening like, this is good. I'm listening to the robot. I just, something about that just feels kind of wrong to me. And there's certain subjects that are like that, like comedy is kind of like that.
Yeah.
Poker, it would be cheating, so that's kind of its own thing entirely. But there are certain like entertainment space things that, while we're going to see more AI infusion, I think people do like to see, like, we're all genuinely curious. What's the peak of human performance like? Like, what's it when the best humans are operating at their full capacity? What is that like? Not assisted by AI.
What if we're like witnessing it right now?
I mean, we are.
You know what I mean?
That's what's happening
And
right now.
AI is just gonna like, I feel I could see it a couple different ways. I feel like AI is getting so good that you're not even gonna tell the difference. You're gonna be like, oh, this, like if it was a skate video and it was just made out of AI and they're just doing the biggest tricks and it's like the coolest skater or whatever, it's like, would you be able to tell the difference because it's getting so damn good?
The riots in LA right now, I've been, it's in my algorithm and I'm watching what's happening. And every 6th video of the riots, somebody will turn to the camera and go, this isn't real. I'm AI. I'm not actually here. This is not actually happening right now.
Wild.
And then like a dinosaur will step into frame. And it's like, oh shit, that looked, I thought this was just the same guy from like
it's getting
the
gnarly,
CNN video
man.
that I watched.
And I'm having the opposite thing now, where sometimes I post content online and someone goes, this is obviously AI. I'm like, no, that's a real video. I did this thing recently where I just got hired by a big online poker website called Club WPT Gold. You can sign up with code Doug. Anyway, they signed me. And so they came to Austin and we rented out an office and we hired real actors and we did some like stupid scenes, right? Because I wanted to make a funny video about it. And I posted it. And I'm like, oh, it's a great video. And then first comment, obviously AI generated. Like, these are real actors. Like, I'm there. We did this. And then you just see that kind of comment for all kinds of things. Like I saw that with some of like when Tony Hinchcliffe had that clip where he basically said like, what happened with our poker match? Like, oh, this is AI. People are just claiming everything is
People
AI.
think that was real.
Well, I saw some comments, but I mean, people are dumb. People now with the
Do you know this, that he went on Kill Tony?
No.
Yeah. So you want to tell him the story?
Yeah, sure.
You should tell him the story.
All right. So, okay, I'll tell the full story then. So, I started hanging out with Phillip here recently, and we went out to see an episode of Kill Tony. He invited me out for the night.
Mm-hmm.
And so we see the show. It's great. Afterwards, we're hanging out at the bar next door, Mitzi's, and he's like, okay, I got to introduce you to Tony. I say, okay, cool. So we wait a little bit. He walks over. He's like, okay, this is Doug. He plays poker. This is Tony. He does comedy. Like, you guys can meet each other. I say, hey, I'm Doug. He goes, I'll fucking beat you at poker. And then I'm like, what? So we just.
So you're leaving out one key point though.
What's
So I had, before I introduced you to him, I was like, you were like, I think I would do this one day. I'd put my name in the hat, and I go,
oh yeah.
And I go, would you actually? And you're like, yeah, I think I would. And I go, well, Tony fancies himself a poker player.
True.
I bet you he'd play you for it. And so he was like, you said I would. And so I was like, Lo, let's go over. And so that's why. And I went to Tony. I'm like, yo, this is the best heads-up player in the world. And so then the comment, and I was like, you guys should play right now.
Okay, nice.
But that was that was how that whole sort of the thing happened, because it was, for me, I wanted to see you do the show, and I also wanted to see you crush Tony.
Oh, it was such an epic match, man. And then the whole bar gathered around.
Oh, so you guys just played right there.
Well,
so
because I have a card room here in Austin, I have a dealer chat. I was like, hey, it's 2 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah, by the way, it's 2:00 in the morning.
Can somebody come downtown with chips and deal this game? And in like 5 minutes, we had a dealer.
What?
Or we had a dealer on the way, and then we had
insane.
dealer and chips, and busted the whole thing out. And then we, first match. So most celebrities, when they play poker, most people in general, they're really conservative.
Yeah.
They just don't want to take any risk, and they eventually lose. And so it's actually kind of easy to play most people like that. You just kind of grind them down. Tony played insane, like not good insane, like insane, like every street betting, raising, putting the pressure on. And the first match we played, I made no hands. So when someone plays like that and you make no hands, you can't possibly win because they just keep betting and you have nothing, right? Like you can't make a move. You're kind of cornered. So the first one, he just grinded me down and won. And then I had to beg for a rematch.
Which, by the way, how much did you put up for the first match?
Oh yeah, sorry. We should have said. Well, I was gonna do it, and then you.
Oh, okay, tell it your way. Tell it your way.
It's okay. So we agreed on this. My $20,000 versus 1 minute on the show.
Oh wow.
Which was a crazy offer in retrospect. I probably should have offered considerably lower than that. He accepted it, and we battled it out. He wins, so he's up $20,000 now. Okay. Now it only been like 20 minutes. And I was like, hey, like, let's do another one. Let's go best 2 out of 3, something like that. So we agree. We negotiate for a bit. We agree on $40,000 to get a spot in the show. And then the second one, he once again whittles me down. And I'm thinking, this is going to be it. Like, I'm going to lose 2 matches, lose $40,000, and then go home and not even get to go in the show.
Damn.
And then finally, it was like things just turn with one hand, because when people play that aggressive, it just takes one hand where you finally make something. And I finally started to make some hands. And then it came all the way back, and I won the second one. And then we did a third, like, kind of rubberneck match. And I actually won 2 appearances on the show by winning the third match. So I ended up at the end of the day winning all my money back. I won 2 appearances on the show. And it was a crazy, crazy, crazy night. Like, we were up until 5:30 in the morning.
Yeah, we didn't get home till like 5:30 that night.
Yeah, because we both had a designated driver take us back to the same
I think
neighborhood.
one of your dealers drove us home.
Oh, it's actually one of my buddies.
Yeah.
One of my buddies. Yeah.
But then, so like, and this all leads to just a very interesting, as people at home will call it, a side quest, right? So then, with the way that you approach, everything you do strategically, you're spending time, you're doing open mics, you're getting right. And then he went on a couple weeks ago, and I got to see it live, but like, he went on and absolutely crushed a minute on the show.
No way.
Yeah, it was
sick, dude.
It was sick, man. It was so. I started practicing a little bit after that. Every morning I'd wake up and write material, and when on my YouTube stuff, I try to always incorporate humor.
Yeah.
So that kind of idea of writing jokes, like, I've been writing jokes for a long time. It's just my jokes are always edited and
for sure
brushed up and they're polished, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and they don't have to be good, because when you do a YouTube video and you make a joke, the stakes are insanely low because people are watching that video for something else, and you just happen to make a joke there. Whereas when you do stand up,
you're in front of everybody.
You are there to make people laugh.
Yeah.
And if they don't laugh at the joke, that's the point. The point was laughter.
Yeah.
So the stakes are considerably higher. But I immediately started writing jokes, and then, like, I would go to open mics and I would test them, and open mics are brutal, by the way. I don't know if you've been to many open mics, but there's like 10 people there. They're all just
I've never done an open mic, but I've been to a few.
Okay, all right. We're gonna get you up there one day. We're gonna get you in there. Yeah.
I definitely would like to, and I will one day, but it won't be until I no longer have a business or anything to lose. Because nowadays you can just get in so much trouble for something being taken out of context or whatever.
Yeah,
and
true.
The things that are funny are typically not PC.
But you know what, man? Just to play the other side of that, my best joke was making fun of California fires burning down houses, and I received 0 blowback.
Yeah,
from
but
that.
I guess I could make that joke. Yeah, I mean, there are certain jokes you can make, but I think there's a very long-standing statement that everybody knows: no politics, no religion at the dinner table. Right? You don't mix those things with dinner. And so my job and what I do is I provide an incredible environment and experience for you to have a fantastic dinner.
That makes sense, yeah.
If my dinner starts being associated with one side or the other, or starts being associated with this or that, even because the court of public opinion, the second you're accused of anything in this world, you are now guilty of it, and you'll never get that off.
But don't you think you kind of already deal with that from like being kind of in the Joe Rogan sphere?
Yeah. Yes. I don't think that New York Times would have written a hit piece on me if I wasn't. And I feel that way because the first paragraph was about Joe Rogan. We did a 2 years in a row, we did a collab with Joe. We did the JRB, the Joe Rogan burger, for South by in the back of the mothership.
Is that elk meat?
It's not elk meat.
No, it's not elk meat.
There's no DMT in it. There's no but those jokes were abundant.
Okay.
But this most recent one, we posted about it, And in the past, everybody's been happy. You know, I would say since my association with Joe, I'll get a comment every 4 months. It's like, you lost a customer.
Right.
And then everybody on the comments jump in and they're like, would you stop listening to the Beatles because somebody you don't likes the Beatles? That's like a weird stance.
Yeah.
And so, but like this most recent one, we posted about, like, you know, we announced it again, second time, and it got so bad we had to turn the comments off. It literally turned into like fucking a war, like a geopolitical war zone. And we're like, we're trying to make hamburgers, guys. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, it was like way off topic. It was just a little too much. It was like, this isn't, you lost a point of what this is, you know, and it was just this battle of like, they were getting so personal with each other. It could have been all bots, who knows? But they were just going back and forth with each other.
It was getting wild.
No talk about food. No talk about. It went way out of hand. Where you're just like, all right, guys, like.
Well, so you know, this is a really interesting topic. Although, if we continue to pivot from here, we're going to get so far off. Should we finish the kill? Or do you want to?
Wherever you want to go.
Okay, because I want to talk about running a business and representing a business and what you can say, because I think that's a really important topic. But I don't want to get so far off. So I guess
let's finish the Kill Tony story. And then
okay, let me finish that up. Yeah, so that sounds good. So anyway, I write for like a month. I have a couple of my buddies come out, and like we go to open mics. We're just like, you know, bouncing jokes off each other, trying to like improve, trying to figure out what's funny. And just like working on my delivery. Every one of my sets I recorded. I'd send to some other friends, be like, hey, what do you think about this? Like, basically just like, anyone that's around me, can you give me some feedback on this?
But it seems like you're treating it the same way. Like, after we would play cards all night, we would all go to Taco Bell and then talk about all the hands and things we could have done differently. And so it seems like you're still approaching it with a similar mindset.
Exactly. It's not being afraid to be bad.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be bad. There's no doubt. When you go to an open mic on your first set, you're going to be so bad. You're going to be terrible. It's going to be cringy. It's hard to watch. You watch it back. Oh my God, this person, that's me. And then as you start to get more reps, you learn a few things. Your stage presence gets better. Now, I've had a career of public speaking, so in terms of that, I was already good to go. And then I've had a career of joke writing, so in terms of that, I was good to go. But I've never done the unedited. And I think a big problem that I even had when I did it was I sound kind of, what's up, guys? Doug Polk here. Welcome to my YouTube. You know, it's sort of like, it's like that polished kind of presentation. Whereas stand-up, the really good comedians, they don't sound like that. It's like just like they're talking and you're there. And I never I still, like, one day I'd love to figure this out, get to that kind of tonality. But regardless, I did so many open mics, and I did a show at my restaurant here in Round Rock. It's called Odds Bar and Bistro. It's next to the Poker Room. We did like an open mic night where anyone could go do comedy. I went to Miami for something totally separate, and there was a like comedy thing one night, and they let me go up, and I did there. So I was just like getting the reps, you know?
Yeah.
And then eventually I was like, after all these sets, this one section just always killed. And it was the same section, the same jokes. And it was funny enough, the first joke I ever wrote was the opening joke I did for it, for my set. And you know, the thing is, like, the great thing about comedy is if you do it in front of enough people, they're going to tell you if it's funny or not, because they're going to laugh or not. Yeah. And then anything that doesn't laugh, you can just X that. You know, maybe you can workshop if you want, but consistently it was, this is the best, this is the best, this is the best. So then after 7 or 8 of those sets, I said, okay, I'm ready. And I texted Tony. I was like, I'm ready. Like, I feel confident about my material. So he's like, okay, Monday. I'm like, oh shit. I texted Phillip immediately, right? And so I remember going there, and right beforehand, just like, it's starting to set in, you're going to do this. And because the stakes are really high, because most of the people that go up on that show as a bucket pull, they're just random people, right? Like, I kind of have like a brand. Like, it already had been through poker. Doug's going to go on this. So if I go up there and I just bomb, it's kind of brutal because that follows you a little. It's not like a huge deal or anything, but the stakes are considerably higher, right? And so like beforehand, I'm like running it through, and then eventually they say, okay, gotta go to the back, and I'm waiting in this back hallway, just you know, racked with anxiety to go out there.
Sweating.
Oh, sweating, bro. So
They made you wait.
sweaty.
They made you wait for a while,
Dude, it was so long. I was back there, and I'm just waiting, and I'm in the corner, and so the bass player. This is a funny story. The bass player for the band is blind, and I'm in this dark corner that they have waiting to go up, And I'm just like looking for any people, right? And he turns the corner, and I'm thinking, oh, thank God. I throw him a head nod. I'm like, oh no. I'm throwing the blind guy a head nod. I'm a wreck back there. And eventually I come up to like right behind the stage. They have a red X, like X marks the spot, and then there's an arrow, and that's where you're going. And then eventually they're just like, are you ready? And I'm like, okay, I'm ready. And then he calls me out, and then they open it up, and you walk out. And it was so crazy because the moment I walked out, all of that anxiety was gone, because it wasn't that I was scared to perform. I love performing. It was that the anxiety of like, I can't choose when it happens was eating me alive. Like, I have to wait until someone says you go. And that was killing me. But the moment I walked out, it was like relief. And I feel like when I watched it back, I could see relief in my face. I walked out. I'm like, okay, now here we are.
Finally.
Here we go. Right. And so I started off with my opening joke, got some laughs. It was great. And I could just tell immediately people are going to laugh here. Like, you can just tell. Like, people are listening. They paid to be here. They want to be here. And they're listening to your jokes. And if they're well thought out, you're going to get some laughs. And so the whole thing went great. At one point in my set, I told like some setup joke. It wasn't even the punchline yet, about like a serial killer killing gay men. And some guy just laughs in the audience. And I just go, how is that funny? And everyone laughs at that. Oh my God, it was so great, man.
Yeah, I told you, I thought you wrote that part.
I didn't write that.
Yeah, I know. I believe you, but I thought that was like, I thought that setup was so that you could react to someone going like, God, come on, that's obviously not funny.
Yeah, I mean, it was just in the moment. You know what it was, by the way? Because when things are going well, it feels safe. Like, I felt like if I try and just do something crazy here and make fun of this guy with no comedy experience whatsoever, if it goes badly, I can just go back to stuff that's working and I'll be okay. And it doesn't feel like I'm taking a risk. And I feel like not addressing a guy laughing at a serial killer is kind of weird, right?
Yeah.
Like, this guy's cracking up about gay guys getting killed at the lake. Like, that's not funny. That's objectively not funny. Anyway, I feel like this has gone on for a bit, but yeah, then I had the interview. Everything went great. Had a couple of good moments in there, but all in all, it was just like it was an awesome experience. And I feel like life is short. You should try and do fun things where you can kind of spread your wings and fly and try new things. And I really appreciate you kind of making the whole thing happen, dude. You were the guy behind the scenes.
I mean, I just think it's cool, one, to see the two worlds come together, but I think it's cool for people to go out and just do it. You know, whatever that is, whatever your version of Kill Tony is, or comedy or whatever, like, to be able to go like, I think I'm funny. I write some jokes as sort of like a hobby portion of my job. And you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to go fucking do it. You know, win or lose, whatever, I'm going to give it my all. And I feel like that. I mean, and now you're still doing it, right? It's just like becoming like a little side hustle for you.
Well, I have another appearance I have to do, so I've been practicing some stuff.
Sick, dude.
I'm working on this premise lately. I'm still just figuring out the jokes and stuff. But like the other day, or it was yesterday, I went to the store and we're getting some stuff for Father's Day. And I just tried to buy some non-alcoholic beers just because I have like one or two I'm chilling or whatever. And I got denied because it doesn't open until 10 a.m. They can't sell alcohol. And I said, perfect. It's just like so ridiculous. Like, why are you like?
You can't sell me the thing that isn't alcoholic.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
That's very strange.
And then I was thinking more like, why do we put the non-alcoholic beer next to the alcoholic bear? Right? It's kind of like the worst place to put it. Like, think about the people that are going to buy that beer. I feel like we could do different sections. Anyway, I'm writing on some jokes.
I think you got a good premise there.
Yeah,
I think you do.
Yeah.
So getting back to I want to get back to poker because I'm still very interested in the rise from 1 cent, 2 cent to
let's do it.
200, 400 or whatever it is. But you did bring up you know, while we're still on sort of the comedy thing, how when you have a business, an out-facing business, you have to sort of protect the brand and stuff like that. So you seemed like you had somewhere you wanted to go with that.
Yeah, by the way, I gotta say, you're doing a great job here. I'm making your life as difficult as possible. Like, how many different topics can I do?
No,
let's juggle 4 and see what the host does.
It's actually, I mean, usually when we have these conversations, it's after midnight and we've had a lot to drink. So it's actually a lot easier when I'm coherent to actually navigate these.
And now we will for sure remember them because we're recording it. So that's good. We have it on tape. But yeah, so going back to what we were talking about earlier about when you own a business, when you represent a business, it's tough because all of a sudden you don't just represent yourself, you also represent the people that work for you. And I think trying to strike that balance is really, truly difficult because you end up having to go one of 2 lanes to some extent. You either have to go the lane of, I don't want to ruffle feathers because there will be people that resent me for my opinions or what I have to say, or you have to be willing to just ruffle those feathers, and the shrapnel will go where it goes, and then the fallout will happen as it does. And I just think like trying to strike that balance is really, really, really difficult, because even if you mean your best, right? Like I don't have as many political takes publicly anymore for this exact reason, but if I do say something publicly, I do it because I feel like it's authentic to who I am and it's important to me, and I don't try and take unnecessary risks, but I also don't want to feel like, oh, well, you don't get to have your opinion because people, who might work for you or people who might frequent your businesses, they might disagree. So you need to just shut up and play poker or whatever. That just can't be the right thing, because, you only live one life, and have to spend that life just trying to dumb it down to just nothing so that no one gets upset with you so you can make money. I mean, in a way, isn't it just kind of better to speak your mind to some extent and risk losing some money? Isn't that more authentic to the human experience?
So I think the very easy answer is yes. But I think that in my specific field, the idea is you just never bring politics or religion to the dinner table. And so I have a responsibility to keep the dinner table as a sanctity, or whatever the word, that's the sacred space, right? I also, for whatever it's worth, I'm not someone who feels compelled enough by either side that I need to go out there and raise my fist, and do that. So like I'm not political at all. I'm such a person that gets like so dialed into something, and I can't give something 10%. I either don't give it, or I give it 150, which you've experienced.
Yeah, I've seen some of that for sure.
Which hurts me sometimes. I get hurt. But I'm such a passionate person that I know that if I got into politics, like following it, and I would get so angry that I would become miserable. And the only way to not be miserable would be to go dedicate your life to making the change that you want to see. And so I have chosen to remain blissfully ignorant on many things. So from a personal standpoint, if I felt that I have to go say this, I would.
Okay. So.
But again, like you said, I have over 300 employees.
Right.
If I go out there and I'm like, you got to do this, that could hurt somebody else. There was an interesting thing that happened, and I'm not going to get into the specifics of what protest or for what, but there was a big thing, and there were people who were really angry at me online for not using my platform to speak out. And in DMs, I was like, listen, I've donated. I have done the part that I feel is like, it's not my place to be Chef Phillip who has an opinion on the government.
Right.
It's my job is to be Chef Phillip who's going to cook you great food. There are plenty of people out there to give you hot takes. And if I was the guy with the hot take, I wouldn't be cooking. I'd be out there giving the hot takes. So I think, to your point, feeling integral and having something that feels like very authentic to who you are, you can't ever deny that. Because I'm very outspoken about the things I believe in, right? And I'm very outspoken about the things that I am incredibly passionate about. But I've chosen a life,
right?
And so with anything, you have to pick and choose. You can't just do everything, or certain things will blow up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we have so many conversations about how it's just like, I mean, the thing is also like so I went through, I had my eyes opened, like the fucking curtain pulled back a long time ago, where it was like I was on shows where I would watch the show and I'd be like, I didn't say that, or I don't remember that happening like that at all. I thought I won that show. Why did I lose? And I'm just thinking like, you can watch video of me saying something. You can watch video of somebody else saying stuff about me that didn't actually happen. And this is like more than a decade ago. And you read stuff. I mean, you can read in like, stuff in the New York Times that's completely not true about me. You can read stuff in the Robb Report where it's like they talk about, how there's a dozen rich businessmen who own Scratch Restaurants Group. Like, you can read these things, and most people think that that's real. And so, like, when I see two politicians being like, they said this, and the other guy goes, no, I didn't, and then they roll tape, and then he goes, you said that, and then he goes, no, I didn't, and then they roll tape, I go, oh, yeah, I don't know what, have no idea what's real. And if I have no idea what's even real, like we were talking about, I see riots that are real, and then I see riots that aren't real. And I'm like,
yeah.
and then you start to get to a place where it's like, what is real? What is real is my wife, my daughter, my restaurant, my friends, my parents. And so I just choose to protect and to spend all of my time and emotion there.
I think that's a very healthy way of approaching it.
Mm-hmm.
I've also gotten a lot of trouble for being outspoken when I was younger, so I've also gotten there.
Yeah, I think
learned.
you take a few L's on the way to learning this lesson.
Yeah,
probably.
but that's what your 20s are for.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe 30s.
Go ahead.
I wanted to ask about like high stake games. You know, like as you were kind of building your career, I'm sure there's some times where like things weren't looking so well with these games.
Yeah. So what's interesting about poker is you're going to get a few moments in your career where it really is going to be a lot of luck, and you have to hope that things go correct. So for me, that moment was in 2017. I won a tournament called the One Drop.
Okay.
And first place was 3.7 million or something like that. And
Jesus.
at the final table, there were 9 people left, and I was in, I want to say 9th. It might have been 8th, but it was 8th.
And that's hard to do.
Yeah.
Go from to be the lowest in chips to winning is a difficult thing to do.
And I went all in with 10-9 suited, and I got called by Ace Queen. And so I'm like 35 to 40% to win that. And I hit a 10, and I won, and I doubled up. And I went on to win the tournament. And when you think about it, if I had just lost there, instead of winning 3.7, I would have won like 250 or something, 300. I don't know what it was. So it was extremely lucky, just pure lucky for me to have done as well as I did. Obviously, I'm a great poker player, but that actual result to get that place was fortune. That was luck.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are always going to be these key moments, particularly if you're a tournament player, where it just kind of comes down to the right card coming at the right time. And I have one more story too. When I was younger, so I forget how old I was, like 20, 21, 22, something like that. And I had taken a shot at a pretty big game online because there was this Russian guy that was very not good. And I knew he was going to lose his money eventually, and I just wanted it to be to me. So I had 170K net worth at the time. And so I was playing mainly like 10-20. So I had like, 80 buy-ins or something. And this guy would only play at 5,100s. That's 17 buy-ins. So the buy-in to that game is $10,000. I only have 170. And so I looked at it and I thought, this is a truly amazing spot for a chance for me to win a lot of money. So what I'll do is I'm gonna take a $30,000 shot. So I only have 3 buy-ins for 30,000. So 10,000, 10,000, 10,000.
Yeah.
If I lose all 3, I'm out. And then if I win, we'll go from there. And my first buy-in, I lose. My second buy-in, I lose. My third buy-in. So this is it. This is my last chance. And I told myself I'm quitting no matter what because I can't do more damage than this. And I get all in with ace queen against jacks. And the flop is 3 low cards. And the turn's a low card. And the river is a queen. And so I double up to 20,000. And I go on to win $100 and something thousand off that guy that day.
Wow.
And if that river is not a queen, all of a sudden I had to move down in stakes. It takes me however long to build. Maybe I don't get the next opportunity. Maybe I don't get the next opportunity. But now instead of having a 170K bankroll, I have a 270K bankroll. Now I can afford to play bigger. I can play more people. I can be more aggressive. And so there are always going to be these like kind of key moments where how it goes will dictate things for you. And I'm sure I've had some big ones where it went poorly. But the point is like all you can do is control the process. And if you control the process that you bring to the table to try and execute at a high level, then you just have to hope things go the right way. And in the long run, you'll get there. But there's always some good fortune. I mean, look, like all of the best poker players in the world, they got lucky in some ways. Like, let me give you an example. Like the kind of the older guard, like the Negreanus, the Ivies, the Helmuths. That generation of poker players, they came up.
I like that that's the older guard now.
It is for sure.
Because they were the young guys when I was getting involved in it.
I mean, times change.
Yeah.
I'll be old before you know it. You know? But yeah, basically, like those guys came up when online poker in the U.S. was an absolute peak. Basically, all of this money was getting pumped in. It was on ESPN. It was on CBS. It was everywhere. And so all of the online poker sites, they were spending a lot of money to try and get people to come play on their sites. And to do that, they had all these shows and they were paying money everywhere. And it was just like, hundreds of millions, if not billions of views, and also just, millions and millions of dollars being spent. And all three of those guys got to be the stars of that era, right? They got to be the star of this big boom. And then in 2011, when Black Friday happened, the US government basically pulled the plug on online poker in America. All of a sudden, that money vanished. The views vanished. The shows vanished because there was no longer a reason to promote poker so much because you couldn't play online. And so just for those three guys to have been, or, there's more than those three, but those are the biggest three that come to mind. Just for them to be there at that time is lucky, right? Or to have won the games they won to get there. So, I would definitely say, I think like I'm a good poker player. I've been very lucky in my life for things to have gone as well as they have. But really, like if you look at most of the best poker players in the world, they had to kind of get lucky, generally speaking, to be where they are today.
Well, you do, but also like you're bringing up that you river that queen, right? You bring up that you hit the 10, but how many times do you make a final table? How many times have you made a final table and bricked that entire board and went home?
You know what, man?
100 times?
Not that often.
No?
I have not played that many tournaments. I have not made that many final tables. If you look at my WSOP resume, I think I've made like 6 or 7 final tables. I think I have like a third, 2 seconds, and 3 firsts or something. So I don't
So
know.
you just you play very few tournaments, but you crush them.
Basically, yeah. And the thing is, my style is, the way I play tournaments is I try and play for the win. And I don't want to get too complicated for the audience here, but tournaments, every chip's not worth $1.
You can also get complicated. I have a feeling that a decent amount of people who have made it this far actually care about poker.
Probably,
I imagine. And if not, just fast forward like, I don't know, 2 minutes.
So just to be clear, you're saying I should go all in? No. Anyway.
See, he's a natural comedian.
There we go.
Oh, I guess we'll see. Anyway, so going back to this, every chip in a poker tournament is not worth $1 directly, right? It's worth some amount of value because the prize pool is distributed. So if you win all of the chips in a tournament, you don't win all the money. You win the first place prize. Because of that, it's not the same when you win a pot as when you lose a pot. Every chip you make has less value than ones you lose. It's very complicated and long-winded, but where I'm going with this is a lot of people take that to play really conservative. Don't lose chips. But the problem with that, when you play too conservative, you don't give yourself a chance to win the goddamn tournament. And if you look at where the money is in a tournament, it's at the top. So figuring out a way to get the least possible money and make sure you get your buy-in back is not the key, in my opinion, to tournament success. And it's certainly not the key to building your brand. Brands are built around winners, around winning big things. So the way I always played tournaments was, I'm here to win this tournament. You guys can all play for like the small amounts of money. That's cool with me. And if I lose, I can go home. I'm cool with that too. But then what happens is when you play that style, a lot of times when I'm further in a tournament, I have a lot of chips. So I can make moves. I can put pressure on people. I can build a stack. And so in a lot of these final tables, I came in with a lot of chips and I was able to build. And I think like, when I just look at my career as a whole, super lucky to have done as well as I have in tournaments. But I also was constantly putting myself in a position to win, which is kind of the theme of this podcast.
That's always been sort of again, I grew up, idolizing Stu Unger. And watching Negreanu in the beginning, and so like for me, it was those guys. There's still that famous hand to me, Daniel against Sammy Farha, when he makes the bluff on the river by underbetting. Do you know what hand I'm talking about?
I don't think so. Maybe
I don't remember how the whole hand plays out, but basically, Daniel Negreanu misses the river. I think Sam either checks or bets, and then with complete air, he doesn't do what we do nowadays, which is do a 3x pot bet to I'm forgetting the word right now. I've had too much coffee.
Overbet.
Overbet, but to
balance.
No, there's a word.
Polarize.
I'm trying to show you the polar opposite.
I can keep saying words.
Yes, well, we got it. Third
Blue,
try.
green, yellow.
But instead of polarizing, which is today's thing, back then, he bet his raise was so small that Sammy was like, I'm 100% I'm going to call, so you must have it, and he folds.
Right.
I have now because of that, I forget why this was relevant at all. But because that's the way that I came up with that as my example, because there was no book on GTO. There was no podcast you can listen to. There was no, nowadays you get like kids who are just like, it's the same way with skateboarding. Now you get kids who are doing backflips when, off of fucking shit when they're 14. And now you get these young like computer whizzes who can, who are just like completely world beaters.
The backflip seems harder.
Well, no, it's like each generation is just gnarlier than
Yeah.
the other. Yeah, it's like it just gets crazier and crazier because like what they grew up to, the norm is like the craziest thing that like my generation can do. So then the new generation, that's norm for them. That's the beginning stages, and then they basically progress so much further. And then the generation after them is even gnarlier because they grew up to them, So
it reminds me a little bit of like in the Olympics, how when they have the 100-yard dash or whatever, 100-meter dash probably, there's always some record, and then that record only gets lower. It's never like they set the record and then no one ever touches it. They keep just
beating it
tiny bit lower, right? And so if you come up and this is the standard, right? Like when Tony Hawk did the 900, that was crazy, right? And then that set sort of like, okay, well now we know this is possible. Can you do a 1080? Can we do this? Can you do it with this other addition, right? Then it only, like humanity only pushes forward. We never go backwards. At least we try not to.
So obviously there's no way that you started out small, got to big without any, any obstacles, any huge losses. Like, I'm assuming, what are some times where like, if you can think back specifically to times where like other people would have quit?
Yeah, so there's one specifically that I had that I'll never forget. So when I bought a home in Las Vegas when I was 20 from poker winnings.
Dang.
And things were going good.
Let's
and it
go.
was right after the real estate market crashed too. So I got like a sweet deal. I was living large.
Yeah.
It was amazing. And then it kind of went to my head too early, right? Because I'm in my early 20s. I dropped out. I have a house. I think I'm doing awesome. And I feel like you really don't respect money or like the fact that it can go badly. And I just wasn't focused, and I was, in Vegas partying and just, kind of being in my very early 20s, which is a totally fine time to do that kind of stuff. But slowly I was losing a lot of my money, and I wasn't focused on the poker playing. And then by the time it kind of got back to it, I had lost most of my money. And then right when that happened, Black Friday happened, which is what banned online poker in the US. So I lost legitimately 99% of my liquid bankroll. I think I went from something like 400K or 300K, something like that, to like 3K or 4K.
Whoa.
I lost almost everything.
And that was just like a slow burn that you like just didn't realize, or?
Oh, well, the first chunk was definitely reckless spending, let's be honest.
Yeah.
And then there was certainly some games that I shouldn't have played in that were too big, and some lessons were learned, right? Sometimes you had to, like, I was doing stupid stuff. Like I bought this really nice set of golf clubs. I don't play golf. I still don't.
Yeah.
I never did. Had some clubs though. And I would just do stuff like that, right? And it was before I met my wife, and the girl I was dating at the time was an expensive habit as well. So anyway, the point is, like, I went through all of these learning experiences to improve my life and fix things. But by the time I kind of came out of that whirlwind, I was, had lost almost everything. And I kind of like just set myself back to like, what am I good at? I know I'm good at heads up. I'm going to focus on this. I'm going to lock in. And I kind of gave myself like a runway. If I can't, in the next 6 months, if I can't make this happen, then like we're going to go a different direction. Because the thing is, like, the problem in the gambling world is people can become delusional, and it's okay to try and fail. But then if this is not going to work out, then I should go back to school, and I should get my poli-sci degree that I'd been working on for a little bit. And I should try and become, like, I should find a viable path, right?
Yeah.
And even though like it had gone well until all these other mistakes, it would still be, I don't want to become delusional, right? I want to make sure I'm going on a viable path. So I said, okay, I'm going to give everything I got. I'm going to pack up my stuff. I'm driving to Vancouver because online poker is legal in Vancouver. I'm going to get there, and I'm just going to go as hard as I possibly can. And I got there, and I remember like right out of the gate, I was backed by one of my buddies who put up the money for me to play.
So just real fast to set the stakes. So you bought a house, you have 400K. Next thing you know, you're down to $3,000 roughly.
Yeah.
Did you have a mortgage that you had to pay on that, or was it?
Yeah.
Okay, so, and I imagine that was a couple $1,000s or something. So you're basically like almost upside down.
Yeah, I'm on the absolute rope. I have spreadsheets somewhere with this where I have all of the numbers, and they're gritty. Occasionally I'll go back and look at
I'm
it.
sorry to interrupt, but like just for everyone at home to like actually like understand the stakes of like
Yeah.
I only like you probably only have a few weeks left of actually of liquid money to live off of
Yeah.
before you start, but not having enough money to pay your your mortgage, and so that
Mortgage.
now you drive up there and you start playing online.
Right. Yeah, I guess I knew it was bad, but as you're saying it, maybe I did not appreciate how bad it was.
Yeah, but that's
He's like, so you're a fucking degenerate, right? Just everyone knows. Everyone at home knows he's a degenerate. Okay, carry on, Doug. Carry on.
There is a there's a specific term for this, and I suffer from this as well. It's called optimistic delusion. I'm a
okay.
delusional optimist, right? And so you can be very. And, I mean, look, if you're going to be delusional, it's better to be a delusional optimist than a delusional pessimist.
I agree with that
right?
entirely.
So at that age, you're not capable of really understanding what's at stake.
Right.
But what is at stake, mathematically speaking, if you don't make more money and if you lose any more, you're going to lose your house, or you're going to have to go start borrowing, but you're going to be upside down.
Yeah.
I was gonna be on the ropes. I probably had a couple of friends that knew I was a good poker player that could would front me for a bit, but I was clearly on the ropes, like obviously on the ropes. So I knew when I was driving up there with all my stuff in the trunk, this has to work.
Did you sell your place, or were you?
No, I had my place still. Like if it came down to it, I could sell it. But it was my home base. It was where I had my things. It was like,
So you just had it. So you just went on vacation, basically.
I went on vacations. Yeah, I guess we can call it vacation.
Did you just buy your house cash, or did you have to pay a mortgage and stuff?
There's something called a wraparound mortgage. Basically, he carries stuff, but we have an agreement that if I pay it off, it becomes mine and it's somehow held by a third party. I don't exactly know the whole. The bottom line is this: I gave him $50K. I got a house.
Yeah.
And it was a sweet house in Las Vegas, and that's like how I kind of got started. But yeah, I still had the house, so if it really came down to it, I could sell that and I could use that to move forward. But the point is, if I'm struggling, I'm not going to just spend my life struggling. I'm going to find something I'm good at. And while poker went well at the time, and I'm going to give this 100,000% for 6 months. And if I can't do it, I'm going to move on, because you can't just. Sometimes your heart and your head are in different places. In my heart, I believed, and in my head, I thought I did. But I also didn't want to become one of those people where you get older and they're delusional and they're losing their money on gambling and various things, and they have a problem, right? Like I'm not going to let myself get to that point. So packed my stuff up, moved to Vancouver, and I remember the first day I said, we're throwing down. Okay, I'm going to buy in for $100 games online, and I'm going to play it for as many hours as I can possibly see the screen. And I threw like a 30-hour session out of the gate. And I basically doubled my bankroll on day one. I just won like buying after buying after buying after buying after buying on all these different sites. And then within a couple of weeks, I had run up like, 25, 50,000. Within a few months, I'd run up $250,000. And then I was playing like high stakes online in like 4, 5, 6 months, because kind of went back to what we were talking about earlier. I just picked that one game.
Oh, so this was all heads up.
All heads up. I realized something on the drive up there. A lot of hours to think driving from Vegas to Vancouver. I realized something, that I was hopping around and doing all these things thinking I was like so good and everything. I was 21, 22 and I had a bunch of money. But the reality was I had only really been winning in one format. I'd been winning in heads up very consistently. And I had mistaken that for being talented in all these other things like tournaments and ring cash games. And I wasn't actually that good at those things. Like maybe I could be if I tried. But that's not where I'm truly excellent. Where I'm excellent is heads up poker, because that's it plays to all of my strengths. And so, when I got there, I'm like, I'm only playing this game now. I'm playing nothing else. And I played that all the way up. $100 games, 200, 400, 600, 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, 40. And I just, over the next year, I went from like
insane.
Yeah, it was honestly, looking back, it's crazy. It's completely insane.
So you just climbed the ladder, basically. You're like,
I basically beat everybody. And then there were two guys at the top of the list. So just so you understand how heads up works. Oh man, this is like such flashbacks now. Basically, there's like a pecking order in heads up online, where if you think you're the 10th best player, you're not going to play the 5th, because you would start with the 9th, right? Because if you play the 5th and you beat him, well, you get to choose who you play. So if you beat the 5th best guy, now the 7th is like, I'm not playing him. He just beat the 5th best guy.
Yeah.
So you try to go in order.
How sorry to interrupt.
That's okay.
Because I don't even know the answer to this question. I'm sure other people might want to know too. how does the pecking order? Is it by who's winning the most? Like how is that actually like laid out?
It's not, and this is actually an issue poker has compared to NFL, NBA, like real sports. There's no officially sanctioned real ranking, right? Like we have things we use, like we like Hendon Mob is the site that tracks winnings, but it's just
But it doesn't track all the winnings.
It tracks every cash, but not buy-ins. So you're not actually seeing someone's results in terms of how much they're making. You're just seeing what their like gross. Basically, it would be like if you showed someone your restaurant's financials and you only sent them gross revenue with no expenses.
Yeah.
It might be going amazing. It might be going,
Yeah, but
as the business
if you're
owner.
doing $1 million a year in sales, but $1,000,001 in expenses, you're not doing very well.
Not doing too
Yeah.
well. So it's like that with Hendon Mob, or there's different things that you can look at to get that data. But with Heads Up, it's kind of just public perception, or like the perception of the higher ranked people, because you kind of know where you are. Like there are only so many tables you can sit online, and so there's going to be scuffles. Like
And there's only so many
skirmishes.
dudes at that level who are playing that money.
So if someone wants a table, because if you have the table, you can play bad players. So if you're sitting at a table and a better player joins or a worse player joins, you're going to look at him and you're going to think, am I better than that guy? And you're like, if you're better, like, okay, I'll play. And if you put your blind out, then he knows that you think you're better than him. And this is like almost like high school drama.
Yeah.
But yeah,
This is fascinating. I had no idea of this this part of poker.
Right.
This is all online.
all online.
You're
yeah.
able to see each other.
Yeah, you see the screen name, so you
Okay.
would know, and then you kind of know who the groups are. Like my biggest rivals were always the Swedes. For some reason, I would battle it out with the Swedes because like they were super aggressive and I was super aggressive. So we would have like these crazy aggressive wild matches. I remember some of these sessions. There's one guy, his name was Will Hassa online, or Dino King, and we would have these sick like 15, 20 hour high stakes battles. In 2015, 15, I won the biggest pot in online poker of any pot. And I think it was like 400 or 500K or something in just one hand.
Wow.
Where I had aces and he had kings.
And it was pre?
Whoa.
And it was on pre, yeah. And I held. It
Wow.
was incredible. But we'd have these just monster wild sessions where like we would just lock in and play for 16 hours. There'd be hundreds of thousands swinging. He'd always be taking smoke breaks. I like it when my opponent's taking smoke breaks. I just feel good about the situation, Like anything's like, oh, need a cigarette. You're like, probably doing good in this match. Anyway, so yeah, like to go back to the story though, I ran it back up, and I at some point pretty early on I paid the guy back who gave me the money to play, and then I ran up a ton of money and I started investing it, and then everything from there went incredible. But the second time around, you look back and you think, I saw all of the mistakes I made, and I'm so grateful now to not be in that position anymore. I will not make those mistakes again, because look, like life will sometimes really beat you up, but if you can take that and learn from it and improve who you are and make better fundamental decisions about the way that you organize things and structure your life, in this case financially, then you can make sure that you're not in that same risky position again. And I made sure to do that. And then when I did transition to other games, I did it in a responsible, professional manner, rather than just like, oh, I'll play this tournament, I'll do this. Like I had to learn that and then come back stronger.
So you won the biggest hand in the history, or at least to that point.
That year in
Yeah.
2014, 15.
What was the biggest you've lost? Like, have you ever? I mean, you strike me as someone who's very pragmatic, who's like, okay, that's part of the game, but like you can only that's part of the game to a certain point.
Yeah. So let me think about this. Most of my biggest pots I have lost, at least on TV poker. So most of my poker I've played in the last 5 years has been on poker shows, whether it's on the Lodge stream here, or whether it's at Hustler in LA, or in Vegas. There's a couple shows. So most of the stuff you can just like search and look at and watch me lose. But my biggest pot I've ever played, I lost a something like $1.2 million pot to Tom Dwan a few years ago, where I had a missed straight draw and I tried to bluff against a full house, which did not work.
Yeah, it sucks when you're repping the hand he has.
Yeah, not good. Not a good one. I've lost a couple other big ones. A non-streamed one I lost once. So I was playing in this big game in Vegas where it's a really interesting game. Basically, they cycle between a whole bunch of different games, and it's called Big Bet Mix. And so they'd be like, Pot Limit Omaha, and then it might be Single Draw, and then it might be Badoogie, and they play all these crazy games. And so what's sick about that game is you end up playing these huge pots in games you're not that familiar with. And this one was actually in Omaha, which I'm relatively familiar with, but I played a $700,000 pot in Omaha. Yeah. Where I got in and we had like almost exactly 50-50. Like I had top 2 and something and he had like all these draws and we're like, all right, let's run it 4 times. So, we had 4 different rivers.
Yeah.
Won the first, feeling good. Won the second, now I'm feeling great. And then I lost the third and I won the fourth. So I ended up winning like
25%?
Yeah,
Or 75%.
I won 175K or something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah. So I've played some big hands. I'd be lying if at some point you don't feel it to some extent. But I also think if you're the kind of person where the stakes really hit you hard about how much money you're playing for, you kind of don't get there. You don't get there to begin with, right? The kind of person where it's like, this is so much money. You don't do well in the level below and the level below that and the level below that. Like you have to be able to totally desensitize yourself from money and just view it as a game.
I think you said that the best. Like in the beginning of this show was just, you have to use money that you could part with. Like if it hurts you to like put this money up, then it's you've already lost.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But if you could part with it, then you're playing and you're gonna have a good time, regardless.
Well, it might not always be a good time.
But you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, you're being responsible, right?
Yeah.
You're doing it in a way that you have a good chance to win, and you're probably winning in the long run. But it just, I don't know, you have to be able to just totally separate it. And I guess like that was what was so fun about the online days back in the day. It was the Wild West. We didn't know what the right strategies were. It was just dudes battling it out, and there were rivalries. And you'd log on, you'd see 2 guys. Oh, these guys hate each other. You'd be watching them battle it out, and you know that they're just like, when they win, they're so happy. When they lose, you know what I'm saying? Like it was like real battles. Like I played. There was another guy named Isildur, who's a very famous online poker player. His name's Victor Blom, and I had a lot of really high stakes battles with him too. And so the most I've ever lost in one day was I lost $1 million to Isildur in one day online. Yeah, in one day.
What was
in
your
buy-ins?
Sorry?
In buy-ins?
I lost $1 million in cash in one day.
Ooh.
What was your bankroll when you lost that $1 million?
So let me think about this. So
Because if it was $100 million, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, so for the sake of trying to keep it simple for viewers, I usually don't talk about like when I sell pieces, right? Because it gets really complicated. Oh, I had 46% of myself and this and that, and the other. But I had a couple buddies where we all put the money up together. And when I lost $1 million, like my share might have been like 300K or something like that. So we all had a piece of the action, or maybe I lost more than that. It doesn't really matter. We all had a piece of that action. And so, it was a hit I could afford to take. Like I lost 300K of my own money, and maybe my bankroll was like 2 or 3 million or something like that. So even still like,
a lot.
I mean, it was a big hit.
It's a lot.
But I'm still going to be able to keep playing,
Yeah.
To me, it's incredible to see you be able to like pragmatically mitigate like you said it earlier where you said something to the effect of like you can either regret it, this side or that side of it, and it's you're right, you only ever suffer emotional damage when you are playing for a stake that requires emotional, for you to ante up emotionally.
Yeah.
And so I find it incredible that you've been able to navigate the entirety of your career or at least most of your career in a way where you're like, if I lose $1 million here, I'll be cool.
Right. Well, the thing is, you have to be like that if you're going to play at that level.
Yeah.
And the thing is, when you play at that high of a stake, you don't get to decide when you play because you're the pro. Whenever they sit you, you play until they're done. And so when a guy like that sits you and you recognize you're only going to get a couple of these opportunities a year, you have to play until he's done. And that means you have to be ready to unload the clip and lose a ton of money because you do not know when you will see this person again. This is your chance. It's feast or famine, right? It's time to feast. And if you're the one that's getting killed, you just have to keep rebuying. Now, that day, I did set a stop loss of $1 million. It's a reasonable place to cut things off, I think. By the way, let me tell you the funniest thing about the story, right? So I lose $1 million. I'm devastated. I walk away from the computer. I go for a walk. I try and walk it off. Hard to walk that one
Devastated.
off.
Okay, here's where we're getting there.
Okay.
We're breaking through the armor.
We're breaking through. So I walk away. I go to sleep. I wake up. my phone's blowing up because online poker, you can see all the matches. Everything's publicly tracked. And I have all these texts, all these messages, but there's one that's hit especially hard. It was from my dad, and it just said, "Are you okay?"
Oh man.
Oh man.
Oh, no.
Brutal. That's so brutal.
So what was that walk like? I mean, what's
Oh.
what's going through your mind, and how and well, let's start with that. What's going through your mind?
Well, whenever you lose a lot, the first thing you think about was, did I make the right choice to do this? And with that one, I knew that I did because I took a responsible percentage of the action, and it's someone that I had a lot of experience playing. And when you zoom out, I played that guy a lot over the course of a couple of years, and I think I ended up winning about $1.5 million total. So I knew in the long run I was going to win, right? Now maybe at that exact moment I was down, but I just knew just kind of the way he played and the way I played that I was going to win in the long run. So from that perspective, it didn't feel that bad. From just like the raw amount of money that was lost, it's kind of sick just to have lost that much money in one day. And the way you lose it is kind of brutal, right? Because when they stack you, your money just goes into their stack. So
Yes.
you're just staring at like this guy's screen name, $632,000, $326 dollars, and then it's just your money in his stack now, and yours just says zero. That's kind of sick.
And if you want to keep going, you have to put more in.
I know. Actually, I had one of my favorite hands I've ever played that I won that session where I had aces and the board ran out to where one card made a straight. It's a very scary situation. And he went all in on the river. And I remember looking at the call button and it says call, and then it says the amount you have to call, and it's like $163,214. And there was, and then cents in there. And it's so many numbers that the font got messed up. And so it's like really tiny.
It's not designed for bets that are that big.
It's not designed for that.
Oh,
So the
wow.
font is like, you kind of got to squint to see it, but I could see the chips. It's clear how much money is at stake here. But and I'm hovering over it, and I'm like, this is kind of fucked up. That if I click this button, I lose. At the time, like a shitty house somewhere. But like, and if I'm right, I win back like a good sized house. Like this is kind of ridiculous. Like this. What if I just accidentally click the middle button or the side button? We're talking about making a decision at the age of like 21 for just these sums of money. I don't know. It's kind of crazy. Like what? I felt like overcome with just like how insane this moment was. But
So hold on. Do you click call or fold?
I clicked call.
Why?
And he was bluffing me. So it was.
How do you know?
Well,
how do you think?
He showed his cards.
No. Well, obviously, when you win, it's a bluff.
Yeah.
But how are you confident enough to make that call?
Well, I thought it was a situation. So when there are 4 cards to a straight, it's always kind of weird because it's pretty easy to have the straight. They just need to have that one card. But
Was it a gut shot one card or was
it was
a
like a low
open
end.
end?
So like the flop was something like 10-7-3, and it ran out like 4-5, so a 6 made a straight.
Got it. So there's only one card for.
Yeah, one card to a straight, but it was a kind of uncommon card, and it was a spot where there are lots of hands that might want to bluff, where they could have like a Jack 9 or a 9-8 or a Jack 8, stuff like that. So, and then also the thing about my opponent, Isildur, he would always act instantly, and so if he ever thought for a bit, you knew it was kind of close. And I checked, and he jammed. And so in my mind, it was a straight or a bluff. Like if he had a 2 pair, he would at least think about this for a second because he's not going to just rip in 160K in the river with just 2 pair without thinking about it. So in my mind, it was pretty clear he had the straight or nothing. And that made it even more polar, to go back to what you were saying earlier. And I felt like when you're playing aggressive people, this is just like a good poker tidbit, but when you're playing people that are aggressive and you have good hands that are not amazing, you sometimes just have to take a stand. And you have to. Oh, I have one more good story actually. We're on this. Okay, so up in Vancouver, and there was the other Swedish guy, the guy I was talking about before, Will Hassah, the guy I won that big pot off of. So we were playing high stakes, and this one day he won like several $100,000 off me. Okay, all right, I'll get him tomorrow. I show up, I lose several $100,000 again. So he's won like $750,000 off me, whatever the number is. And I'm with the boys, and we're all like living together, and I'm like sulking after. I'm like, all right, let's go out drinking. So we go to the bar. We're pounding some whiskeys, and I'm like, what the fuck's going on? Why am I losing this? Why? And then my friends are talking with me, and like I'm kind of like the captain of the team, because I back and coach everyone. And then I'm like looking at them, I'm like, you know what? He's fucking with me. This guy's just fucking with me right now. He's bluffing me. He's running me over. We're gonna put our foot down for America. We're going in. Yeah. I am not. If I lose tomorrow, I'm losing. At least I can look myself in the mirror and tell myself I'm a man. Okay, so the next day I'm fired up. let's go. He's obviously happy to play me. He's killing me every day. It's a great hourly rate for him. And he shows up, and that's what led to that big pot. Like, I'm like, nope, whatever happens, I'm putting my foot down. First big pot we play, I have queens on a board that's kind of scary at a 3-bet pot. It's like 9, 7, 6. I bet he raises. Now, normally, past Doug would be like, hold on, let's slow down here. You could, and I'm like, nope, re-raise, all in, call. He has a pair and a gut shot. I stack his ass, and we're on our way back. So sometimes you have to have these moments where you realize, you know, like, I gotta take a stand. And if he does have a really good hand and he gets me and I lose all this money, I can live with that. But I just can't live with just getting run over and just playing conservative. Like I had to fight him in the streets, you know?
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, for sure.
That night the bar was so ridiculous. I'm just hammered. Where I was like chanting USA. Like, what was going on?
I thought you were gonna say that you were like blackout drunk, and you were like, a good idea would be that I go play him right now.
Oh,
and
no,
you went and
no.
I thought that's where that was gonna go.
No, you do not do that. Do not do. Oh, you know what? When I was in college, I had one of my first and only ever non-poker gambling things happen where I was out at like a frat party or whatever, and I got too many drinks. I came back and I just like hit the blackjack tables. I only had a few $100s online, and one of the 2 sites I was on had blackjack, and I lost my whole bankroll. And I woke up and I realized what I had done, and that was another moment where I was like, "You can never do this. Like you have to learn from this. And
yeah,
you do not gamble on non-poker things, or you don't gamble at all when you're that drunk." And I never really had any issues with gambling ever again after that, but it hurt so bad. It was only $150. It was like $150, something like that. But it hurt so bad in college because that's so much beer money. Yeah. I had lost so much beer.
For sure.
It's awesome to like learn about the mindset of someone who's at the absolute top, because like it's so interesting. And I feel like there will be so many people at home who will watch this who like think that poker is just a gambling game. And it's so interesting to hear how you're playing for millions of dollars and you're not willing to gamble.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because even though, yes, it's a gamble to call it all, you know, when you're only 40% or shove when you're at whatever, yes, you're gambling like that. Like it is a percentage that it might come on the next card, but the game in itself is not a gamble.
Right.
The only gamble really is, will you fuck it up?
Yeah, the word gamble is always so funny to me, right? Because so I have a bit of a different take on this because I think society gives the word gamble a negative connotation. And I really don't think that's necessarily the case. Whenever you put money on something, you're gambling. Like when you bet on the US stock market, you're gambling. It's a very good gamble. It's probably going to pay off. The US stock market has always gone up historically. I myself invest in the US stock market. But you can't say with certainty, I know that, you know, in a year or 5 years, 10 years, it will be up. Like we don't know what the future will hold, right? Mm-hmm. When you buy a house, you are in a way gambling. The market might go down. I mean, certainly in Austin, it has gone down for a few years now, right? So whenever we put money on something, we're taking risk. You kind of are gambling. It's just different things have different likelihoods, different chances that it might pan out or not pan out. So I think like viewing the word gamble for what it is important and understanding that poker is gambling. Like sometimes people will say, "Oh, poker is not gambling." It's definitely gambling.
But so is trying to heel flip a 12 stair. That's a gamble.
That's a very different gamble.
Yeah, true.
And then your ability matters a lot on that one too.
Well, yeah, the higher the stakes, the better you fucking better be. And the thing is, if you're playing, whether with a skateboard or with a deck of cards, if you're playing outside of your means of skill, you're liable to destroy your life and even people's around you.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And by the way, I think for us, we wouldn't be gambling. We know exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
I see no gamble at all.
So with, I mean, you have a pretty storied career, and I mean, you're obviously you're running multiple card rooms now, and you know, you've got the Club WPT thing, and now you're a aspiring comedian. As we sort of, you know, start to wrap this up, there's a question that we always ask our guests at the very end, and I'm very excited to sort of hear yours because of how pragmatic you are. If Neen was to pull out a magic lamp and drop it on the table right here, Genie comes out, you get whatever you want, but specifically, you get to design what your life, your world, what does your life look like 10 years from now if you could dictate it down to, you know, a nuance?
Wow. If the genie could tell me, huh? So I guess what I would say is I'm a big process person, and we always aspire to do better and have more and build bigger and dream bigger. But I just like to refine my process as much as I possibly can. So if I'm in 10 years, I'd like to, have had as many kids as my wife and I are going to end up having, which I'm hoping it ends soon. But we'd have our number of kids that we decide on, and obviously we want them to be healthy and happy and have a good relationship with my family. But I would just want to have things really nailed down where I find a great work and home life balance, and I can continue to do the things that I love to do. I don't feel like I need to have a certain amount of success or money or fame or things or whatever. Like, I'm perfectly happy living in our neighborhood. It's a nice neighborhood.
It is.
I have no aspirations to one day become super rich or super famous or super whatever. But I'm a process person, and I want to just continue to improve my process. And I think, like, when you improve your process, everything comes with that, like the success, the money, the health, all these types of things, that they're always going to be there. But I guess they would just be to really have hammered out who I want to be and to have defined that process. I don't know if that's too hippie and esoteric or
I like that.
No, I mean,
that's the truth. It's like what I want.
But that's the whole point, is like, we're asking this question now. We're not asking this question when you're 19.
Yeah.
When you're 19, whether fame and fortune matters to you, you've already have a level of fame and a level of fortune that most people on earth will never get to. Right?
One of the things that going back to process again, I've always loved the journey. Like, you call them side quests. I like when you call them side quests. I've always loved going on a good side quest. You know, and maybe it even becomes the main quest at some point. You don't know, but there's something about trying something and being bad and getting honest feedback and learning and realizing you either can do it or can't do it and giving it your best. That's actually one of my greatest joys in life, is that process and that feedback loop. And when it does go well and you climb, it's just so rewarding to do that. And then I found when you get to the end, it kind of sucks. Like, when I got to the top of Heads Up, it kind of sucked. It's like, now no one will play me and everyone knows I'm the best. Okay.
Yeah.
Now what? Just live on that for 4 decades before I die? I mean, I'm going to have to do some stuff, right? Like, it sucked. I had to change my life. And it was rewarding that I had reached that plateau, but in a way, like, I kind of had to restructure my life, and the journey was over. And so I guess, like, continuing to find great journeys is something I certainly want to do as well.
I like that.
When was it that you reached, like, in this pecking order, number one? Was that when you beat Daniel, or were you already number one when you beat Daniel?
Daniel, that one was a few years out. It was probably like 2015-16 was like my absolute peak. Nowadays, by the way, there are going to be Eastern European guys that are better than me at Heads Up.
Yeah.
Like, we're not going to know who they are, but the reality is the people that spend every day, all day training, like that's like one of the things too for us. Like, we all do things, like we have careers. If we go play poker, we can do it for fun, we can practice, we can study, but we can't just like wake up every day and grind Sims all day and then get good at poker. Like, it's not a fair comparison anymore, you know?
Yeah, because I mean, maybe that guy does, but like, you have a wife, you have kids, you have responsibilities, you have businesses, you have employees, you have all these other things that you don't have when you're trying to build, this in this career, building on all those skills. Yeah,
that's true.
Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
There's so many things there's so many things like, there's so many approaches, or I don't know why am I not being able to figure this out? The way you approach so many things, I find incredibly inspiring and incredibly logical, but not necessarily the way that I approach. And so I thank you, because I learned a lot, and I hope people at home did. And yeah, thanks for being here.
Oh, well, thank you guys for having me on. It was a great time today. Hopefully we kept it enough on topic, although we jumped around a little bit.
There's no real topic. It's really like, here's the thing. Most people who know who you are know that you're the best poker player, but they may not know who you are and why. And so the whole point of this podcast is really just to, like, meet the man behind the fame, or behind the thing that they're known for, how your brain works.
Yeah.
And I know you talk about it sometimes, in your stuff, but like, to like kind of take a deep dive into that. So thank you.
No problem.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
coming
having
on,
me.
man.
It was
This
a
is
lot of
awesome.
fun today.
That's a wrap on today's episode. Hit subscribe now if you want to follow along. We have some awesome guests lined up that we sit down with. Make sure you follow the Not a Damn Chance podcast on socials at NADC Podcast. We'll see you next week.